Hello, my young friends. I'm going to speak on intellectual well-being. Now, intellectual well-being is only part of the personality of a person. And the personality consists of not only intellectual well-being, but also emotional well-being, physical well-being, and spiritual well-being. And they are all interconnected, interrelated. So, we cannot separate intellectual well-being from physical well-being, because only if you are physically all right, you will be able to think and act. You can contemplate and think in your mind and live in your mind. Likewise, only if you are emotionally well, you will be able to think properly. In other words, knowledge is acquired only if the emotion is stable. And of course, all these things lead to spiritual well-being. Well, I am going to talk about only the intellectual well-being. They call it wellness nowadays, but I will prefer well-being. What is it? It is to be healthy, it is to be happy, it is to be in a state of mind which makes you do things properly, as it is expected of you and as you expect to act. Now, how do you maintain this? Even in a time of crisis, even if there is a dispute or conflict within yourself or with the outside world, the intellect is something which is very complex. It's part of the brain, and the brain functions, if it is a normal brain, in such a way that it thinks, it is able to find out ideas, concepts, it's able to identify truth, distinguish truth from falsehood, good from bad. So that kind of intellect is needed for well-being. And we all know what it is and what mind is. They will say mind is matter and matter is mind. It doesn't matter whatever it is, but we know what it is. And mind is responsible for your intellectual activity. And this activity, in part, takes place within yourself. Of course, there are external stimuli which cause the mind to react and also to act. So, if you think that intellectual well-being is essential, then all the impacts that you get from outside and from within should be balanced. You should be able to act using your emotions, your intellects, and even your spiritual well-being accordingly, so that you are able to part with what is not necessary and to associate yourself with what is necessary. Now, intellectual being is necessary. That's first part of my lecture. Is necessary because we need to have some kind of intellectual balance or equilibrium. You must be able to get at knowledge, improve upon it, contribute to others also in terms of intellect. You should be able to part with our intelligence so that others also learn from what we know. It is sharing. Only if you share, you learn better. Of course, you learn without sharing within yourself, yes. But if you share it with others, knowledge grows. It's multiplied. Unlike the wealth, if you share the wealth, it is lost. But if you share intellect or knowledge with others, then the others receive them, but at the same time you don't lose anything. In fact, it gets doubled. So that kind of intellect is necessary, which is able to distinguish good from evil, as I said earlier, and also to know what is knowledge and what knowledge you require for a good, healthy citizen, healthy being. there are various ways to develop intellectual well-being. And the most important one is to develop your knowledge. How do you develop your knowledge? Observe what goes on around you without emotionally getting involved in what you observe. You see things as they are, analyze them, get what is required for your intellectual well-being, not only well-being, your intellectual makeup, and then later on you can use them. So observation is one way of acquiring knowledge. There is another way of acquiring knowledge, that is with the interaction with other people. You interact with others, you learn a lot. You speak to them, and of course, you can also be emotionally involved in this interaction, but you have to glean something from your interaction with others. It is not necessary that you must interact only with intellectuals. Anybody with whom you can interact can contribute to your knowledge. So by observation, you get knowledge. By interacting others, you get knowledge. Thirdly, of course, you have to gain knowledge from what you do. You do things. You go to the kitchen and make your coffee, and you gain knowledge. Today I must have 2 cups of coffee. It means that I must have 3 teaspoonfuls of coffee powder, and this much of sugar is required. Well, this is going to be for 5 persons. How much coffee powder should I use? You gain knowledge by experimenting, by doing things. It is not only in cooking, but also in various other fields like making a machine at the advanced level or working with a computer. You learn by working through it. And even in using a language, learning a language, you have to use it. Only if you use, you can learn how to use it. So, by doing also, you gain knowledge. Fourthly, of course, you gain knowledge by reading. Reading also is an act, but you read and gain a lot of knowledge. Reading does not mean simply spending time and having pleasure. It means something more than that. You gain knowledge by interacting with the author, with the book, with the text. And sometimes you read for pleasure. Even that pleasure is important, because you gain some knowledge even through this pleasure. You also have to analyze what you read, and that intellect helps you to find out what is good, what is bad, what is necessary for your future or the present or for others. And thus the analysis of what is found in the text, in what you read, helps you to gain appropriate knowledge. Well, so you gain knowledge. What's the use of this knowledge? Well, you use it for your own well-being and also for the welfare of others. We'll come back to it later. Now, we have seen how knowledge is gained, and this knowledge is part of your mental makeup. Let us now see how this helps you in your well-being. In a well-being, as I said, is some kind of a balance, happiness, joy, and also it means something more than that. You are able to use your emotion properly through the intellect. As the famous psychologist Eckhart Tolle says, emotion is able to stir up your mental being, your mind. And so you stir up, through the emotion, your mind is worked out. And thus the mind is able to gain from emotions also. So the emotional level reacts with the mind, and the mind decides how to manage the emotions. The emotion cannot be controlled or managed or sublimated simply by your own emotional part of the brain. There comes the mind. The mind decides which is a good kind of emotion. It tells you why you become angry. Suppose some outward incident causes you to become angry, and immediately you just react. But later on, if you think about it, the mind tells you your anger is useless, your anger is meaningless. your anger is not expected to happen. And this kind of reaction is not necessary. And what does it tell this? Only the mind tells you about this. So the mind intellectually analyzes your emotions and you come to a decision. So mind helps you in controlling or sublimating your emotion. Having said all this, let us see how you can intellectually be not only sane but also happy or balanced or healthy, intellectually healthy. How do you do this? First of all, as there are 4 aspects of getting knowledge. You observe people, how they behave. It is especially you can start with children, how they play. Suppose you try to irritate them purposefully. How do they react? And how do you react to that reaction? Observe children, observe old people, observe your own friends, and observe objectively. It takes time for you to practice this objective observation. But observe and find out what is happening there in him or her. Next, you have to interact with them, speak to them. Not necessarily to your friends or your peers, but anybody. And how does it happen? Here also, can you distance yourself from the act of conversing? Then, your mind acts. This is what is happening when I speak aloud, when I shout at them, or when I speak smoothly. What happens in all these aspects? You analyze. And keep yourself at a distance. Don't do it subjectively, objectively. And thus, your mind helps you to have a very good interpersonal relationship, which is more important than anything else today. And thirdly, of course, doing things. When you are angry, do things. When you are emotionally upset, do things. Whatever you like, paint, you sing a song. And if not, at least think about your thoughts. Why do you become angry? Why do you become happy? That is an advanced level. So the doing things also will help you to become emotionally balanced and naturally mentally healthy. And of course, reading. Reading maketh a man. Read. Spend at least half an hour for reading every day. If you are not a student, even if you are engaged in a job which requires only mental activity, get away from it and then do some kind of reading. It gives you pleasure. It gives you emotional pleasure sometimes, but intellectual pleasure. And reading helps you a lot. And some people find their mental activity to be complete only when they write something. Why don't you write? You need not be a creative writer. You need not become trained in writing, but write something. Write a paragraph. Write your diary. So writing maketh you a full man, full woman, full person. So write something. And this is one way of having some health, intellectual health, intellectual well-being, intellectual satisfaction. What next? You can say, I cannot be reading all the time, I cannot be observing all the time, I cannot be painting all the time. Then what to do? Well, do puzzles, the Sudoku. If you are able to do crossword puzzles, it is really helpful. Crossword puzzles may be difficult, but once you start doing it, you become addicted to it. But the point is, don't get addicted to it. Another way of spending time is to play cards, If you have a companion, if you have a few companions, play with them, cards at home. And they say, playing whist. In our places, they call it 904. If you play this, Edgar Allan Poe says that it is more intellectually challenging than even chess. Now, chess is said to have an intellectual exercise, playing chess. But now we find that even whist, playing cards, is also more challenging. That's what Edgar Allan Poe, the great writer, says. And so play cards and anything, if nothing else is possible, say drawing or painting or singing, go into yoga, go into meditation. And they say to start doing meditation, you must have someone who teaches you. Whatever it is, have some time for meditation or yoga, physical exercises, Physical well-being is very important. Nowadays, these days, when you're locked up, do physical exercises. And the physical exercise, a part of the physical exercise can be yoga. Sit and meditate and try to find out who you are. Who are you? Have you ever thought about it? Think about thinking. Know about what is knowledge. And it is highly risky to try to find out what you are, but try to do that. Try to find out the old SWOT analysis, your strengths and weaknesses. At any age you can do that. Even if you are employed, you can do that. Or what are your strengths and weaknesses, challenges and threats? All these things you can think. Eckhart says the body's reaction to the mind is to be analyzed, and if you do that, you will be able to observe your own thoughts and you know what you are. So the ego gets sublimated when you try to find out who you are. So find out who you are. But you may ask me, what do all things lead you to? All these things lead you to happiness. How does it happen? How does this happiness happen? How does this happen acquire? How is this happiness acquired? Do you acquire it? Or does it happen to you? Now, I'm able to recall what Bertrand Russell said. He said he had 3 passions. One is longing for love. The second one is searching for knowledge. Do you get that? Love. First one is love, longing for love. This is an emotion. Love is an emotion. But that longing for love is satisfied means you will be able to achieve a lot of things. And how does it happen again? You love others and others will love you. That's all very simple. But it appears to be simple, but it is difficult. Loving oneself, loving others sometimes get into conflict with each other. So love gets you something very, very essential for happiness. And next one, as I said, is search for knowledge. As I have indicated, you search for knowledge. That was Bertrand Russell's longing. He searched for knowledge and arrived at knowledge. But thirdly, and most importantly, he said he had unbearable pity. Look at that. Unbearable pity for the suffering of mankind, not suffering of his brother or sister or his parents or anybody in his family, neighborhood, but mankind. Mankind suffers today. And what is your reaction to it? Oh, in our place, the people who are affected by COVID is only this many, or the death rate is very low and so on. But did you think about the entire world which is suffering because of this? How many poor people suffer? Do you recall all those things? So that is where he found happiness. And I will quote another source to tell you what happiness is. This is by Henry Drummond. He says, half the world is on the wrong scent in the pursuit of happiness. They think it consists in having and getting. The getting comes first. Getting wealth, getting money is happiness, they say. And keeping it. So, having and getting is happiness. Right. And in having served by others. So you expect others to serve you. That's what you think happiness is. You go to a restaurant and you are being served. At home you are being served by your mother, father, sister. And no, it is not happiness. And Drummond says, on the contrary, it consists in giving, not in keeping, not in earning, but giving it to others who are in need, the needy, and also in serving others. Do you serve others? It's very important. Serving others is the way to going towards happiness. So, all these things will help you to be physically healthy and also intellectually healthy. Because as I said, the emotional health is tied up with intellectual health, intellectual well-being. And of course, all these 3 will lead you to spiritual well-being, is something beyond your reach at the moment, perhaps. But try to have physical health, physical well-being, emotional well-being, and in all these 3, your mental health will help you. For all this will help you to be stress-free. Stress, you may say, is only emotional. No, it is also mental, intellectual. So you have to be stress-free and you have to make others also stress-free. That will be the contribution that you make for humanity. Make a stress-free world by being stress-free yourself and also help others to be without stress or tension. And I'm sure that your intellectual well-being will last for a long time. Thank you.